Tom Kennedy from Greater Upper Valley Solid Waste Management District and Brent Lehouiller, the manager of Vermont operations for Agri-Cycle Energy, are going to give us some updates about what's going on at the Hartland Organic Management site, just because we know there's been some recent changes with grow selling, and it's just great for this community to understand the updates and changes and what's going on. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. Tom and Brent, I'm not sure which of you.
So I'm going to go first.
Okay.
And then Brent is going to, so there's a couple of slides here, but I thought if you would allow me, let me spend 5 or 10 minutes just going down memory lane to give you some top context as far as what Greater Upper Valley Solid Waste District has been trying to do here. You can see on the screen right there, if somebody has a pointer, you can show where the gravel pit is, this big area.
Is that this?
Yeah, right there, yeah. That's one of the largest operating gravel pits in the state of Vermont. It's called Twin States Sand and Gravel. And then to the west of that, and you'll see these small things, you can see where our transfer station is and the like. Right below where it says transfer station, that wooded area there was actually supposed to be the home for a 50,000 per year, 50,000 ton per year landfill that got permitted in the mid 1990s. And so they got their permits, but they really struggled with trying to find in-state capacity to fill the landfill, because right across from where, and a little bit to the south, where that Twin States Sand and Gravel is the city of Lebanon, New Hampshire's landfill, and that is roughly between a 40 and 50,000 ton landfill. So the district went to great expense to try to get this to get the landfill permitted, and when that didn't happen, they just started to look at what else could we do. And Bob Spencer was actually part of this. We did an RFP in, I think, Bob, it was 2012. Yeah, I believe 2012 or 2011, to look at a regional approach to solid waste and to look at what we might be able to do. And so Bob was part of a team with others, and we came up with this concept of trying to come up with a sustainability park, and where we would look at things like the solar and a digester, and looking at biosolids and the like. And that really put the Greater Upper Valley, the district, on track to see what they could do. So then the final report was done in 2013. In 2013 and 14, we went out again to ask engineering firms to look at our landfill site and to ascertain what we could do since the mid-1990s about possibly opening a landfill, and where would the tonnage come from and the like. And surprising to the district was, no longer would a 50,000 ton landfill work. The economics weren't there. It would have to be between 250 and 350,000 tons per year. That really turned off the district. It also turned off the town of Hartland, where the land is located. They didn't really want to be considered to be a landfill town. They're very, very concerned about truck traffic and the like. But again, we said, okay, so now we're going to set that aside, and we're not going to look for that. So the year after that, we looked at solar, and we did an RFP on that. We hired Grow Solar, and they were going to try to put in a 2.2 megawatt facility on the site. And we ran into problems with Green Mountain Power and interconnect costs. So they wanted us to put up $1.2 million to upgrade the transmission lines and the substation. So obviously that didn't work out. And so then in 2016, we started looking out at composting and what we might be able to do to partner with composting groups. And so we reached out to Grow Compost and some others. Grow Compost came by, they looked at the facility, they really liked the facility. And so we entered into a lease agreement with Grow Compost in around 2017. We also fortunate around the same time we got one of the first infrastructure grants. And so if you want to go to the next slide, you can sort of see the pad. So that is the pad, and I want to thank Bob Spencer again. He helped us to site this and to do the permitting and the like. So initially, we were going to try to have a larger facility, but the permitting costs were going to be such that it was going to cost us about additional $40,000 to put in all the stormwater infrastructure and the like. So this is just a registered facility. You can see, looking at it to the right, is the soil that we have left over, and then there's some sort of residual stone and like in that small pile in the center. You can notice that there isn't much organics on it. We can talk about that in a second, but that was due to our difficulties with working with Grow at the time. And then in the following year, we met Agri-Cycle, and we started to have discussions with them. They were starting to move into this area of New England. And in 2018, we entered into an agreement with Agri-Cycle. And if you want to go to the next slide, there it is. And in 2019, we started the construction. This is a 60 by 60 foot steel building. You can see on the right in the blue, that's a liquids tank. But if you want to go to the next slide, if you look inside, so this is the tipping floor, and then on the back side, and I believe, Brad, is that about 12 feet deep where the trailer is, roughly?
Yes.
So it's about 12 feet. So the materials come in, we have a front loader, and then they're deposited into a trailer there that is covered. And and so, you know, things started off fine, and then COVID hit and things started to get shut down. And then this past fall in September, we got the surprise about the sale of Grow to Casella. And so we had approximately 3 weeks to respond to that. And also, I'm not trying to cast aspersions against Grow. They did what they felt they needed to do. And so what we ended up doing is to transfer the, we transferred. Grow Compost was the operator of this facility, of the organic transfer station, and also of the compost pad. And we ended up having to do is we reassigned the lease agreement from Grow to Agri-Cycle, and we did the same thing on the compost pad with Agri-Cycle. And so GUV is really committed to organics. Soon we're going to start bringing organics back onto the site. And so what we're going to do is have a clean stream of organics, and then we're going to have a packaged stream of the organics that come into the site. We have plenty of clients that want our soil, so that's not the issue. It's just really responding to the suddenness of the sale and the new leasing. And it took everyone surprised, especially as you can imagine, Agri-Cycle. Grow Compost had a lot of the routes. And so, you know, all those types of things needed to be reestablished. So we're committed to this. we just extended our lease with Agri-Cycle for the organic transfer station. So it's going to be for seven years. And we're just hoping to grow the facility. We're also looking at, expanding this if we can, to do other types of take other types of food waste and organics and the like. So that's sort of taking you down memory lane. I guess, Brent, if you want to talk about what Agri-Ace has done since the sale.
Yeah. I think it's important to, kind of piggyback onto what you're saying about, giving a little bit of the history. I came on with Grow. It was October of last year, and it was more or less to help facilitate the sale of Grow to Agri-Cycle. And that was, working with them, which that partnership had already taken place, as Tom said, about 3 years earlier. Actually, 2 years earlier. This would have been the third year. So that relationship was already in place. The transfer station was operational when I came on board, and the clean organics, had taken quite a hit with COVID. We had some fairly major customers that went from a very clean stream of food to now packaged with compostables. And a lot of it was, some of the schools, hospitals, and definitely the ski areas, which we service most, if not all, in the state. So the flow and the volume of clean food certainly took a severe hit, and to the point where we were feeding both the Waterbury site and the Hartland site at the same time, and then everything shifted, and we were just feeding the Hartland site and using Waterbury as more of a finishing site, where we were bringing the soils into Waterbury, and screening, mixing, and then selling a final product. So that was sort of the timeline from last October to September 1st. And then as with the sale of Grow to Casella, the clean organics customers went with the sale. And so as far as food material coming into the Hartland site, it took a pretty good hit, and to the point where, we've only seen, a fraction of what we have been taking in previously. We're in the process of rebuilding that, reconnecting with customers that we had previously, getting that volume back up to where it was, and then with the hope that, we can get back to something close to the volumes, which was somewhere around 40 tons a month just prior to the sale of Grow. So, that's really our focus now, is to reestablish those relations and pull that material back on site.
So the other thing we certainly want to do is, and we feel that it's really important, is to develop partnerships with others that are collecting organics and the like. And like I say, we're fortunate in that we can handle both a clean stream and a package stream. So whatever we can do to assist others, we're willing to do. The other thing is, is sometimes it's beneficial to not bring everything to North Hartland, to bring it to other sites, given travel considerations and the like. So, our goal here is not to try to, injure others that are just entering the field and the like, but to try to all work together.
Mhm. Oops, sorry, go ahead, Brent.
I was just going to back Tom's point with, we've been open to other smaller compost collectors, making the site available at pretty much no charge, just to sort of enhance our volumes and soil production. So I think that we would continue to do that going forward.
I think that's about it. We'll take questions.
Yeah, great. I have a couple, but anybody else first? And I think we're a small enough group that you can just unmute yourself. And if we run into talking over, we can use the hand raise function. But all right, well, while people are thinking, I'm going to get us going. So one just clarification I guess I had was, it sounded at first like there was a hit in volume coming in and changes due to COVID, but is also a lot of that because Casella, am I correct in that Casella took over Grow's hauling routes? And so I imagine they're not bringing it to this site anymore, but are trucking it elsewhere. Is that right? Or?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
We also have reached out to Casella and to say, can we all work together? Again, I think what's important with trucking and the like, and we're really trying to see what we can do with greenhouse gases and so on. And does it make sense for people to be bringing organics halfway across the state or across to the other side of the state? And so we have reached out to Casella and asked them, let's partner with some of these things. So that's still a work in progress, and we'll see what happens.
Sure. And so, I mean, again, I'm just trying to understand the mechanics of everything, but right now it sounds like primarily mixed. So package streams are coming in and being trucked to Maine from your site. And is Casella primarily doing the mixed streams as well, or do they have clean streams that might be composted at the Hartland compost site? I don't know if you know. These are questions that popped up.
So obviously there's some very large institutions, but so in this part of Vermont, we call it the Upper Valley, for those that aren't familiar with it. And there's some very significant institutions in the Upper Valley, such as Dartmouth College and the hospital and the like. And we have been reaching out to them to see if they wanted to bring their clean streams to us to make soil. And then we would then in turn give this, working arrangement where they get the soils back to use it in their, in their gardens and like. And so that is a work in progress. But right now, Casella has that contract.
Okay.
And so, but yes, we are is Carolyn on?
Yeah.
Kredinsky's here. So she can also speak to this as well. It's just, I think all of us are making efforts to see what we can do to work together and to try to see if we can make as much soil as we can. The other thing, and maybe Brent wants to talk a little bit more, all of our packaged materials are not necessarily going to Maine any longer.
Oh, okay.
As many of us know, there are digesters now throughout in Vermont and the like, and maybe you want to speak a little bit to that, Brett.
Yeah, there's been a lot of change as far as amount of volume of packaged food, and then also there's been a real uptick in liquids to the point where the digester that's the Agri-Cycle owns in Exeter, Maine, is approaching capacity, which over a year ago didn't seem, possible within the next, year to 2 years. And here we are. And so we're sort of pulling back on the amount of volume that we're sending to Maine. And now that the Vanguard digester in Salisbury, Vermont is up and running, we're partnering with them on not only this digester, but other digesters in Massachusetts as well, and New York. So what we're trying to do is just, bring the distance of hauling and handling down to something, much more manageable and minimize the fuel costs and everything else in time. So yes, there's a lot more of what we're doing. All of our liquids stay in state, and now we're seeing that, the majority of the food is transitioning in that way.
Mm-hmm. And so it's the liquids that you're partnering with the different ADs with, not the package streams that obviously would need to go through some kind of DPAC first. Is that right?
Yeah. So there's DPAC, at their site in Maine, but also in Massachusetts, and now Casella has a facility in Williston, Vermont. So, there's many more options for us out of Vermont than there had been, previously, going back a year or more.
Thanks. And you sort of mentioned the Waterbury site. I was wondering, because I hadn't really heard that much about it. Did Grow retain that, or is that your guys now, or what happened, or Agri-Cycles rather, or what happened with the other Grow site?
I believe at on September 1st, the closing was just business and assets, and did not include the property. As far as I know, Scott and Lisa still own the property, but they no longer compost. So
it's not a compost site anymore.
I don't believe so. I would say that there was finished product that they're probably retailing out of, but as far as new product, I don't believe there is any composting.
Thanks.
This is Bob Spencer. I have a couple questions. Just talking about the product, Grow had a certified organic compost out of Waterbury. Was that correct?
Yes.
I believe that the organic certification had been in place. I don't know to what point the certification ended, but it was prior to the sale.
Right. No, I know it was. They were selling certified organic compost and getting a premium price for it. I was just wondering if the materials that you're hauling in to Hartland could be certified organic.
I can speak
Absolutely.
to that if you want me to, a little on the process, because I actually do that for VOF if someone would like me to speak about it.
Yeah, go ahead, Wendy Sue.
I would.
Oops. Sorry, Brent, and then Wendy Sue.
Yeah. So what I would say is we've kept the level of quality coming into to the site for composting at a level that that would qualify for certified organic. There's a lot of competition out there for that, and so it's getting much harder to get our hands on a fair amount of what's out there.
I guess that's where I was headed, Brent, because you can't take biodegradable polymers or, they don't allow that for certified organic, bio bags.
Correct. So what we were bringing in to the site was absolutely clean food waste from restaurants, schools, hospitals, with no bio bags, no packaging, none of that. So, that's the quality that we were bringing in, but unfortunately, with the sale of Grow, we lost a fair amount of those customers in that volume.
Right. So I guess I was headed, I operate the site in Brattleboro at Wyndham Solid Waste, and we're at capacity. We're having to turn away food scraps now until we can figure out if we can afford getting, as Tom mentioned, it's expensive to get the next size permit.
You should send them to me. That's my job now at Agri-Cycle, is growing back the organics and that stream. So you can, anybody can refer anybody to me.
All righty.
As far as looking for a place for their food scraps.
Maybe Carolyn, you could send me a spec of what you're looking for, because most of our customers had biodegradable packaging and, you know, bags, bio bags, and they would not be able to come to Hartland then.
Well, they would go through the organics transfer station, but they wouldn't be part of the compost.
Oh, so it could get transferred to another
Right.
facility.
So both streams can go through there, but one is going into compost, the other is going right to a digester.
And do you have publicly published tipping fees for both materials?
That's a Brent question.
No, we've just started looking at you know, bringing outside material on site. So we haven't got to the point where we would, you know, we felt comfortable with publishing numbers, but we have clients that we've sat down and looked at volumes and come up with some pricing for.
Right. Well, we can have another discussion about this if I want to.
Sure.
Carolyn, we'll get with you too.
Yeah, we can follow up. I'll give you a call.
Sure. And then Tom, or maybe it's Brent, didn't you consider putting a depackaging machine right at this location?
We are talking about it. It just seems the environment is really changing, and we're trying to see what's going to transpire over the next year or so. I mean, you know, one, to see what Vanguard is thinking of doing. The other thing, Bob, and you know, I know you and I have talked about this kind of endlessly, is it would really be nice to sort of have some kind of a study to see what we need for capacity for the state. How many depackagers do we need, and digesters and things like this. I mean, to me, at some point, we're either going to, you know, in some areas we're maybe over capacity, in other areas we're going to be under capacity. But with these investments that we have to make in some of these areas, it just seems like this laissez-faire attitude. Just, I don't know, I struggle with it personally. And I would really like to see us try to figure out what we really need in Vermont. So the answer is, we would certainly consider it if we think there is a need for there and we can get enough volume, enough throughput.
There is also, just following up from this past legislative session, there may be calls for some regulations and rules around DPAC. And so that, I would say, it's a potentially changing regulatory environment as well over the next year or two. I think will shed more light on that.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I actually am looking forward to the discussion. When is it? On the 15th?
On the 15th, yeah.
Yeah, and to hear that. So
yeah, great.
Yeah,
I think as a fellow or sister composter in the Valley, I think it's great we have another facility. You know, there's just very limited capacity in South and Central Vermont.
I believe Wendy had a question.
Oh, I was just going to make a few comments about, it's not considered certified. Compost is reviewed because it's not, it doesn't fall under the NOP law per se. So VOF reviews it for acceptability for use on organic operations. And the way to do that is to contact Bay Hammond. She does composting. She's a specialist at the Vermont Organic Farmers Office. She's Bay at nofavt.org and request an application. And you have to talk about your ingredients and sources and how you deal with contaminants that inherently come in with ingredients, and process, temperatures, turning to make sure you're meeting the requirements, temperature requirements for organic and products that you tend to sell and stuff like that. And you send in a map and all of that, and then she reviews it and it goes out to an inspector. I'm not the only one who does this for them. And then that person sets up a time and does the evaluation and submits a report. So anyways, that's kind of the process of it. Thanks.
Thanks, Wendy Sue. And Dan, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I had a question about the organics that used to go through the North Hartland facility, but no longer are. Is it safe to assume that when Casella took those loads, those routes from the hospital and others that used to be fairly clean, that they now go to their depackager in Williston and then to one of the digesters that they feed? So they're driving them across the state for that purpose. And then to follow up, that presumably is also what used to happen to those same streams, it sounds like, because the composting wasn't really happening very much on site there anyway, but that the goal would be, if you can get some of those non-packaged food streams back through your facility, that you would potentially compost them rather than send them to Exeter, or
Yeah, so a couple of clarifications. One is Casella was taking the materials from Dartmouth College and the hospital, but it was going to the Lebanon landfill. And the landfill said they were composting, but in actuality, they were leaving it there for a while and then using it as daily cover. So it's only been recently that that Casella has been, that Dartmouth is getting Casella to bring it elsewhere. The TAM facility in Shaftesbury is opened again. So I think some of the clean stuff is going to Shaftesbury, and then the others is going up to Williston. So Carolyn or Dan, if you want, or Brent, if you want to correct me, but that's my understanding.
I'm wondering about Foster Brothers. Are they doing food scraps still? I thought Casella was bringing some materials there in Middlebury.
Yeah, it may be, but I know TAM's facility is opened up again for composting. Isn't that right, Brent?
Yeah, that is correct. But I would say, we were getting a fair amount of the clean food scraps from central Vermont north. And when that transitioned over to Casella, I believe most, if not all, have been transitioned into the Williston DPAC and then off to, whichever digester they're using.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I talked with Bob a little bit about this at the end of last week. I think a follow-up, or maybe at the next meeting, we'll invite Casella to come as well, so we can hear from them a little bit about their operations and how that's changing.
40 tons per month of clean food was at the peak of the compost facility. What is the current tonnage of depackaged material going through the transfer station?
Currently, we're running about 50 tons per week.
And does that include, I don't know much about your collection model, but you guys, Agri-Cycle, own collection trucks, correct?
Correct.
And you're serving like Mount Snow and Stratton Mountain, and is that true?
That was all Grow
We
Compost customers.
Oh, so that's
we were
Casella then.
Yeah, currently, I would say 95% of what goes through the transfer station is Hannaford's, Shaw's, Tops, the supermarkets in it would be Western New Hampshire, Vermont, and Eastern New York.
And that's all commingled, Brent, in terms of packaged
Yes.
and unpackaged?
Does that include price?
Yeah,
check?
it price. We'll start servicing Price Chopper on starting January 1.
Okay.
And I would just add that many of our customers when Grow Compost was operating were, they were smaller, but they were doing the organic stream. It's
You mean the
larger
separated
grocery
stream?
stores. Yes, source separated,
Yes.
Mhm.
but they are now all Casella customers.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm working to get back, those organics customers.
But at the moment, if you get them back, is it still going to, where is it going? I guess I'll just say or ask.
Well,
But
the plan has always been that we would take a different approach to servicing. We were collecting clean organics with box trucks, and it was pretty labor intensive. So this go around, we were going to sort of retrofit some of our rendering trucks to be able to pick up clean organics, and then designate certain days of the week and design routes specifically for clean foods waste customers. So, the hope is that we're going to, Carolyn and others that are out there talking with these folks, that we're going to get that, that volume back, but do it in a way that's a little bit more efficient than what we were doing it before, which would allow us to increase our volumes beyond where we were with Grow.
And so then that material, those clean streams would actually be composted at the Hartland site. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
But for now, so at the moment, you said you were dealing with 50 tons per week of clean streams?
No, this is all, primarily
Mixed.
packaged,
Yeah.
mixed. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's almost exclusively supermarkets.
Supermarkets. Okay. Dan? Did you want
Yeah, a couple questions. One point, I think the TAM facility, Green Mountain, or I think they're calling themselves Long Trail
to? Long
Compost
Trail. Mhm.
yeah,
in Bennington. That last I heard, they're just taking Bennington and Rutland County waste, mostly Bennington, but a little bit of Rutland County. So maybe they're taking some of those from Upper Valley, but I would be surprised if they're going that route versus going straight west to Williston, just based on our experience with what they've done with the formerly compostable organics that used to be composted at our facility, which are now being put through the DPAC for digestion. And then a question for Agri-Cycle folks, are you looking at all into more aggressively competing in some of their hauling markets? Obviously, you're trying to peel back customers that Grow used to have that transferred, but what about expanding in other high density areas for commercial routes or even residential? Residential is a new thing that Casella has not excelled at, in my opinion. And there's a lot of people looking to get into that. Just curious if you've considered that and in your quest to find more tons.
well, I can say from my years of experience at Grow Compost, we did residential in terms of condos, affordable housing, apartment buildings, but there is so much more labor as far as training, and it's a whole different ballpark. So I would say that's definitely on our radar screen, but going for the more low-hanging fruit. So there's no reason we couldn't do that. It's just in terms of time for those sorts of accounts, there was much more time was needed.
Yeah, and I also would add to that that depending on which area of the state you're looking at, there's increased competition from smaller compost
Yeah.
collectors, and I feel like we don't really need to get into their business. I think that there's enough of them that are doing it and doing it really well. And if we can be, an outlet, a place where they can, bring some of their, extra volumes to and work with them in that way, I think that works better for us. But as far as going and being aggressive towards marketing residential, I don't see that as being something we're going to be considering seriously, at least within the next year or two.
Any other questions?
Can I ask Dan a question?
Sure.
Dan, how's the DPAC working in Williston?
The Casella DPAC?
Yes, yes.
I don't know, really. They don't consult with me very often these days at all. And so I don't get much. I've seen it in operation a couple of times, but I don't have any good answer. They're putting a lot through it, I believe. They've had a few issues, as any DPAC operator will. And I think their issues have been more on what to do with the material coming out, because they ran into some problems with the recent press and excitement around microplastics and losing some of the farms where they were bringing material. But sounds like Salisbury has a huge appetite and not a whole lot of scrutiny on what's coming out of that so far. So I presume they're not too worried. And they say, they keep saying they'll take more and more. So hard to know. I don't, you'd have to ask them, I guess.
Yeah, I think that gets to the point of asking Casella to join us at a future CAV meeting so we can hear directly from them. Because what I'm hearing here, as well as in conversations outside of this meeting, is that there's a lot of people asking each other about what Casella is doing, but no one quite exactly knows. So I think it would be great to hear directly from them if possible, so we can just have a clearer understanding. Thank you, Tom and Brent and Carolyn, all for joining us today. It's helped me sort of wrap my head around some of the changes. And again, I think up till now, I kind of thought, sort of like what we were just talking about with Casella, I kind of thought I knew what was going on there, but it's really great to have some clarity around that. Before we transition, are there any other questions for Tom or Brent or Carolyn?
No, this is Bob. I just want to thank them for sharing this information with us. We are all in a waste shed, so it's good to know what's available.
I also just wanted to note, the fact that there's so many places at capacity, that's the success of the law, and that's pretty exciting. So, the food scraps are actually staying out of the landfill. People are, complying with it, and that's great.
Yeah, we're moving in the right direction.
Right.
And I think facing some challenges and bumps along the way that come with that, right? We can't really deal with those issues until we are bumping up against capacity or other challenges or questions or issues. So while we may not have it all down perfectly yet, I think I agree, we're moving in the right direction.
Well, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming.